Rounding off our top 5 lists, then let's kick things into gear with our top 5 co-op games. Let's have a run through our honourable mentions. I want to say No Man's Sky, because what a sort of rags to riches story that game is, because it's a truly good game now, and it's just you can operate within the same world as one another and just go about and do your own thing. Like, I was playing with Murray and my friend Scott earlier this year with this game, and we were just doing our own thing, which almost was probably why it's not in a list of co-op games. It's just an honourable mention. But like, it's a true universe that you can just operate. You can go and help each other out, go and speak, go and hang out with each other, go and do missions from the Citadel together, and then go off and build your base or go hunting for stories and things like that. It's a really real. This game has done such a 180 from being a complete mess at launch to being a genuinely quality product.
Fantastic. I didn't even really pay any attention to the fact that they had co-op in it anymore. When I saw that, I thought, what? This has co-op?
So yeah, there's and it is like for me it's an absolutely mind-blowing moment. So like, you start off on your planet and you're messing about, and you get like, you repair your ship and you get your hyperdrive, and then probably about 5-6 hours into the game you hear this signal when you're out in space, and it takes you and you get coordinates. You go to these coordinates and it takes you to this, it looks like a Death Star, and you go in it and you're like, oh my god, this is a multiplayer hub. And everybody and there's people like from there playing their game running about. There's like co-op missions you can take on together. They're still updating the game to this day, like adding in ships, adding like really, really paying a lot of attention to this game. And when you walk into that, I keep calling it the Citadel, I think that's actually Destiny, but when you walk into like the hub area, when you look around and you realise, you're like, oh no, wait, this is what people wanted. It has become what people wanted it to be.
It's become what they said it was going to be.
Yeah, you're like, this is amazing, because it feels quite a lonely game up until that point. And you're like, actually no, I'm connected to this massive community that's still going to this day. It's huge.
I think there's something definitely to be said about a shared experience that doesn't have to necessarily impact anyone else's. So you can, as you say, be there with your friends, just chatting, shooting the shit, playing the same game, and able to see each other playing the game, but also you don't have to do anything that they're doing at that moment. That's a really unique and cool way of playing a co-op game.
I think so.
So one of my honourable mentions just says any beat 'em up, because any beat 'em up works. Streets of Rage, Final
so
Fight,
fun.
Turtles, Simpsons, X-Men, doesn't matter. They're all gonna give you the same experience, but they're all super, super fun. But because they're all so similar, I couldn't really pick one from any of those. Although Streets of Rage 4 that came out last year is well worth a go. Well worth a go.
My next, I'm going to go with Minecraft. I think that's like second. Like, this is probably the game I've spent the most time playing with people ever.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, there was a period of time when I had dragged all my friends onto their PCs and Macs to play Minecraft, and I actually rented a server for months.
Oh yeah,
which we could all could just log on and play together, and just we all had little towns that we had built up, and we were all building things and making things and going on little expeditions together. Yeah, that Minecraft again is another game that still lives on to this day and is absolutely fantastic. It is a real quality product that. I was going to say, it's not under. People were well aware of Minecraft.
Maybe
fan
it's
of
underrated as a co-op game, because again, that's not something I associate it with at all.
Yeah,
I associate it with children building Lego on their dad's PC when they're like, whatever. Not.
But sort of like knowing your friend is needing gold, and if you stumble across it, you can like pick it up, and if he's not online, you can go and drop it off in his chest and say, "Oh, I've put some gold in your chest." And like, I built this massive machine and. So that my friends could like grow and harvest wheat to make bread. So basically, like, you plant all the seeds, and then I had this it would grow, and it would be ready to harvest. And if you flooded it with water, it was built like on a slope. So it basically, the water would wash all the wheat down to the bottom, and you could just jump and pick it up. And sat for hours like making redstone switches and stuff so that it would all work properly. Yeah, that game is cool. Big fan of
cool.
Minecraft.
I will briefly give a nod to Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
How does that work without a headset? I feel like that you need a VR headset to truly experience that game.
That would make it a lot cooler, to be fair. Yes. So this game I have experienced with one person holding the Nintendo Switch and looking at the screen on that, which you can then you manipulate the bomb on the Switch, and then the other person, we've printed it. You have to print out a bomb manual, so you will then read out what's on the bomb to the person who's on the other side of the room, reading up the manual, and they will have to figure out the puzzle and tell you what wires to cut or button to press or whatever. It's a game you can play with anybody. Anybody that you value the intelligence of, anyway, because it's it could be overwhelming for children or whatever, or older, like your nan. Come on, nan, cut the fucking wire. You don't want that going on Christmas Day. But I've played this with like my parents, and I play it with my wife, and we both really enjoy it. So it's it's definitely worth going. If you see it for cheap and you can see it on the Switch, and you've got access to a printer, give it a go, because it's such a unique game to play where someone has to read a manual out to you.
Yeah.
Talk me through. You've got GTA Online here. I never really played any of that because I was too scared I was just going to get shot immediately.
Yeah, so that's probably the reason it didn't make my final list, because the actual implementation of it wasn't quite as good as it could have been. But doing heists with people was absolutely fantastic. The best part of GTA 5 is planning and organising your heists and then executing on them. They have those in multiplayer, and when you've got a group of friends together and you're all going through and doing the heist together, it is amazing. It is really, really well done, and I wish they did more of them. And I wish I guess before GTA started making all the money on the planet, maybe they had plans to do so. But I would have loved to see them build upon that and bring out more and more heists for people to go in and play with their friends with, because the heists are where it's at in that game.
Really I think I wished that I just had more friends who were playing it at the time.
That's the problem. In that, so like if you had a 4-man heist and say only me and you had someone to play with, the game is rife with people quitting on you. So like you'd be halfway through a heist, and then if someone quit, it would just kick you out of the heist, rather than just let you continue or put an AI character or draft someone else in. It would just boot you out to the main menu again, which is why it doesn't make the list. But the actual, when it works, it's great. It's really, really good.
Cool. So Resident Evil 5 is not a good Resident Evil game. But
I think it's funny because I know that's the general consensus, but this is the first Resi game that really got me. Like I really had I played this game start to finish in co-op, and I had a fantastic time with it.
Yeah, there are one or two things that they did in that game that needed to be done in that franchise, namely moving and shooting at the same time. Obviously, we can talk about the missteps they made from a racial standpoint, but what's the point? We're all past that now. As I said, I don't think it's that great of a Resident Evil game because it's not scary in any way. And a great way to make a game not scary is to play it with your mate, because you're just going to have a laugh instead. Yeah. But it was a bloody laugh. And me and my best friend, we would play Resident Evil games, we have done for 20 odd years together. We'd always sit there. One of us would have to tell the other one where to go while the other one played the game. And this was the first time we ever were able then to both play it at the same time. And
remind me as well, I feel like if you're playing, you had to sort of, to do this properly, you kind of had to play it co-op, because Shiva was such a little bam.
She would
using up all your... she'd use your medical supplies.
Yeah, but she'd also just use a pistol all the time. It doesn't matter what you gave her; she would just use a pistol on a boss. It's like, what are you doing? AI was terrible, so it was mandatory to have it played with a mate. Me and Chris got all the way through this. We got right the way through to we got the unlimited rocket launchers. We played it he came to visit me in Aberdeen one year, and we played it like 4 times in a weekend, all the way through, just on harder and harder difficulties and stuff. So. I'm not sure why I don't have this in my top 5, but still, it's probably just because it's looked upon badly as a Resi game, and I guess I've used that as my reason to ignore it as a co-op game for some reason. But it gets its mention, so we'll move on.
Yeah. My next one I actually think is probably a better game than number 5 on my list, but it just doesn't have the community there, and I didn't have the friends to play with. But Warhammer Vermintide 2 is a great Left 4 Dead style game. It's got the fantasy genre, which is my jam. I quite like Warhammer as well, and it's just really fun picking your dwarf and leveling them up to the nines to run through levels over and over again at increasingly harder difficulties. It's a Left 4 Dead game that has leveling in it, and it's a good version of that. The reason it didn't make it is, again, it's quite bad for quitters, and the community is small enough that it's a thought to actually go seek out a game. Sometimes you have to sit in menus quite a lot, and they're just not a friendly community. They don't help you out if you're struggling in games. They'll just abandon you and leave you to crawl about while they go and complete the missions. Yeah, it's a game that's let down by its community, both in terms of how nice they aren't, and it's quite a small community.
A game that I wish that more people I knew got into is Monster Hunter World, because that game is quite overwhelming, especially if you've not played the series before. It's less overwhelming than anything else in the series, but it still is a lot of preparation that needs to be done. There's a lot of menuing that needs to be done. There's a lot of grinding that needs to be done. And if you're playing that by yourself, I know people who have tried to play this single player and just thought, like, I've just come completely out of it and just said, what, this is stupid. It takes so long, you're mucking about so much, you do the same thing over and over again. But if you have a team of hunters who've got different weapons, different skill sets, and you properly plan out a hunt and you properly coordinate how you're going to take down a monster, it's so exhilarating. I remember I played it with some of your friends, Alex and Peaston. We had some great hunts on that game. They were just a little bit further ahead than me, a lot further ahead than me. They'd done all the legendary stuff, so I hadn't even finished the game by that point. And I've wanted people to get back into it for ages, to draw me into it again, but just nobody has. And I just can't bring myself to play with randoms or by myself.
That's a tough bit.
Yeah, I just hope when the inevitable sequel comes around for the current gen that enough people that I know get into it and we can have some fun hunting again, because it's unlike anything else, and there's a real strategy you can employ to it that you don't get in a lot of other games where you're just shooting stuff together or whatever.
Yeah. My last one is sort of a caveated Apex Legends, because I think it may technically fit the bill for being a co-op game because you're in a team of 2 or 3, but it's not quite in the spirit of it. But I think if you're talking about co-op games, for me, what I want from a co-op game, one is to have fun, but two is to sort of spark conversations with your friends. And other than maybe Overwatch, I can't think of a game that you and I have spoke about. Like, we'll speak about tactics or the lack of tactics. We'll think about what we're doing, what we can do better in games going forward, and just really trying to get into the nitty gritty about what we did well and what we can do better, and congratulating ourselves when we do something and pull something off, and just being commiserating each other when something goes wrong, which more often than not it does. So working cooperatively with a friend, I think it absolutely counts, and it's a fantastic experience. But it doesn't make the list because I don't think it's in the spirit of the list.
Yeah, and I guess you've admitted that you played a lot of it on your own, and playing it on your own with randoms definitely is not in the spirit of cooperation most of the time in that game.
Absolutely not. Playing on my own with randoms is an exercise in just getting into fights as soon as possible.
That seems to be what everyone who plays solo will only ever do.
Yeah.
I'll always be pinging, like, can you please go over to Elysium all the way over on the other side of the map? Nah. And they just go, no, straight down. Fuck you. So my last honourable mention is Mickey and Donald in World of Illusion, which I don't think there are many 2D platform games that work in co-op at all. And they never have, because it's just a mess and you're always jumping on each other's heads.
I'm surprised to see this game in here.
But this game is slow enough that it actually does kind of work.
It works. Okay.
And it has about 2 or 3 co-op mechanics in it. So there's one where, like, you're on a log that's perfectly balanced to be like a seesaw, and one of them you will stand on it and the other one jumps on it and flips you up in the air to get to a higher platform, and then the other one drops down like a rope for you to climb up. So it had quite a few, like, bespoke co-op mechanics to it, but it just completely redid them over and over and over again. But if you ask on a good day, if you ask me, this to me is better than Castle of Illusion, I think.
Okay. I
tried playing it through a few years back with Chris, and it is quite tough, but we did enjoy the sort of happy little plodding nature of just helping each other out in a little Disney game. Mm-hmm. But nowhere near good enough to make the top 5, which we are on to now.
Yeah, my number 5 we've both got in the list, so let's start with that. I think let's do Left 4 Dead. What a cool game!
What a cool game!
I love that each level is broken up into being like its own little movie, and each one had like a movie poster.
I really
a little,
wanted
tiny
those.
little bit of a story. Yeah,
yeah, you could buy them off of Valve.
Can you get
for a
them?
bit.
Oh, could you?
Yeah.
I might have to go and look for them, at least for one or two of them.
Yeah,
that'd be really cool.
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned this earlier because we were talking about the guns and how they didn't have any weight to them, which absolutely is a valid criticism of this game. But the AI director, is that what it was called? The AI director?
Yeah.
Fucking amazing. The fact that it would
things
just
up so the things weren't the same, and then when you both run into a witch with your friends,
yeah,
and then one of your friends would wake the witch up, and everybody's like scrambling to try and get the witch killed before she mangles everyone.
Yeah, because it would do it. It wouldn't it? If you all stood around too long and did nothing, it would just punish you by attacking you with all the zombies again.
It would send you waves. Yeah.
Yeah, and always the last mission, the last act, I suppose, of each mission/movie where you're all trying to do the desperate escape and you're all having to hold out until the helicopter arrived to pick you up was always just edge of your seat thrill ride. I'm looking forward to Back 4 Blood because that's
I was about to say their game's imminent, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
We'll need to give that a go.
I think so. That absolutely I think is going to stay on here.
Yeah, and it's so atmospheric, like walking through the hospital trying to get to the top, and then like try to hold like if someone goes down, knowing that you've got you're really struggling for med packs and things like that, and like if you get to the helicopter, one of your friends are down, do you go back to help him because chances are no one's going to get out if you do that, or do you just leave him? Yeah, I really really love that game. Really cool.
They had some cool like voice lines as well, didn't they? It was kind of like an early version of the pinging system in Apex, but it didn't have player agency about it, did it? It was just the character would just say it if you walked in a room and there was health kits or whatever.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they'll steal that from Apex for the next one. They should.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Tell me about Luigi's Mansion 3. I've never played it.
Okay, so Luigi's Mansion 3 as a single-player game is perfectly fine, perfectly enjoyable. You are in a hotel and you're going from floor to floor to try and rescue, everybody who's not Luigi. Toad, Mario, Peach. There's probably two Toads because for some reason there's always more than one now. So the fundamental loop of the game is finding like little buttons for each floor of the hotel as you gradually go up. And they've all got themes to them and they get more and more ridiculous. There's one that's got a fucking pyramid in it for some reason, loads of sand. But I initially played half of this by myself, and you have Luigi, and then they bring in this mechanic called Gooigi, which is like a secondary version that you could control both of them with each of the sticks. I think you have to. It's kind of like the medium where you go at this out of body experience. So Luigi basically falls asleep while Gooigi can walk through grates. He can go through like drain pipes. He can go through pipes to get into extra rooms and stuff and root stuff out. And then we went on holiday last year to Cornwall, but it was still during Cornwall was in like a tier 1, I think, so we were restricted somewhat. We couldn't leave the country, so we all went on holiday for half term, and I went with my wife and her mum and stepdad and our niece and nephew. And me and my nephew played this so much because we were stuck in the house because the weather was bad, and we couldn't really do a lot and go a lot of places because those places were shut. And I've not experienced a co-op game with a child before, or that they've been able to. I noticed his ability at gaming had really come on since his dad got him his own Switch. Like, it was a real eye-opening moment for me. Like, nice. He can handle video games now. Like before, I've made them like levels in Mario Maker before, and they were just really struggling. They couldn't handle like running and jumping and moving and properly. But all of a sudden, I could just see him get better and better as the game went on. At first, he was struggling. He was apologizing for doing things wrong, and then by the end, he was just an absolute boss at it. And he kept saying to me, like, just to see the joy in his eyes, being like, "Oh, this is my favourite Switch game. I'm going to ask for this for Christmas," even though we'd literally just completed the game together. Yeah. He was like, "Oh, I want to play it again." So, as a single-player game, it's fine, but it really does need to be played co-op, because there's a lot of bosses towards the end of it where if you have to control Luigi and Gooigi, not even simultaneously, like one or the other, yourself would be quite difficult, because there's certain things you need to. One person has to be doing something like sucking one item of the. I can't even really remember. But the boss will fire something at you. One of you's got to like try and trap them somewhere while they're the one that doesn't attack or whatever. So doing that with two people was so much more helpful than doing it by myself. That it seems to be masquerading as a single player game, but really at heart it's definitely a co-op experience, and it needs to be played that way. And clearly it can be played by anyone.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll move on and let's do Halo Combat Evolved. Again, it's one of these ones that can be perfectly well played on single player, but playing it multiplayer,
unbelievable.
It just made it so much more fun. Like even doing silly things, like if there was a bit you were struggling at, get the blue sticky grenades, attach them to your mate, and send them in. Just send
I've never done that before, which I have.
Yeah, it's just really fun. It's just a great game. Like going around, I don't know. It's like sort of try to coordinate yourself in a game that you're probably used to playing on your own. I've been able to add the new dynamic of people to it, because it allows you. I keep forgetting the name of those big blue things. Being able to kite them in a different way, or being able to like manage the flood in a completely different way that you weren't used to before. It's just a really, really rewarding experience. I wonder maybe if it ultimately won't hang with us, because this game for most people probably is a single player experience, but I think it's definitely worth note as a multiplayer game, because it's just so much fun to play with friends.
I don't think there's a series of games other than Gears of War that I've played in co-op as much as Halo. So for that notion, I don't know if I'm ready to get rid of it.
Oh yeah, we missed out my number 4, didn't we?
And that's the other one. Yeah. Gears of War.
Which is Gears of War. I picked Gears of War 2 because I think that was that the first one that introduced the Horde mode.
Yes.
As well.
Oh my god. I wondered why you put Gears 2 instead of 1 on here. Now it makes sense.
So I think on top of playing it as a multiplayer game, which it's the one thing it does better than Halo. Halo just added another Master Chief and then just sort of ignored that he existed in cutscenes. Gears of War 2 just made you one of the other characters in the game. And it felt like this game was made to be played equally as well co-op as it was single player, to the point that it allowed you to go off in certain areas and do different parts of different levels.
It would split you up on purpose sometimes as well, wouldn't it?
Split you up on purpose, and then the Horde mode on top of that. The Horde mode is fantastic.
Oh, that's definitely pushing this.
If you haven't played it, it sets you against increasingly difficult waves of enemies to see how long you can last, and you can build up bits and pieces of bases to try and make your defenses a little bit better.
Yep.
And I absolutely adore the Gears games. I don't know why I put Halo above it, if I'm honest.
Okay, I think Gears of War 2 is definitely a lock, because I'd completely forgotten about Horde mode, and now I've got some great memories flooding back in of playing that. I will say that for now I will cut Luigi's Mansion. I'm happy to. I've said my piece. I'm
interested.
I've given little Eric his mention and how good he was at the game, and I'm proud of him.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear your argument on Overcooked, because I like that game to a point, and then there's a difficulty spike. Usually, I think it's around the truck level where you've got to make fish and chips.
Yeah.
And the trucks like start pulling apart and pulling again. Where I went from it being pleasantly challenging to just infuriating for me.
Yeah. And the ice levels as well, where you can fall in the water. So I included this one so high because my wife is not really that much of a gamer, and this is one of the only games we've ever really experienced together, and she absolutely loves it. We've had plenty of arguments while playing it, usually me blaming her for falling in the water or falling off a truck, as you just mentioned, because the difficulty spike is insane. But I've still got a video on my phone of us in both, like, in our pajamas in the middle of the night when we finally beat that fucking spaghetti boss at the end. It took us so long. And we've played the sequel as well together. It's one of the only things I can guarantee my wife will want to play with me. So that's why I put it in here. But we have had some great memories playing that together.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think I would go so far as I don't like it that much, but you've got such an emotional attachment to it. I think it's fine if you want to keep
the quality of the game a little bit.
Yeah,
but yeah.
No, but I think that's part of these lists.
That's true, actually.
Like we're very much honest in the fact that, like, a lot of what we're doing, we're trying to talk about what we think are the best games, but these lists aren't objective. They're like what's important. I mean, we spoke about GoldenEye extensively in our top 5 licensed games about how much it meant to us as gamers. And I think the same could be true for Overcooked, and I might not have had that experience, but I'm only 50% of a winner's you. So
Good point.
If you want to keep it, I'm happy because actually,
Okay.
Halo should be lower than Gears in my opinion.
Okay.
I don't know why I put it in third, and Halo's a game that I think most people will probably have enjoyed as a single player game over a co-op game.
Okay. We won't cut Halo just yet, but we'll mark it as probably the one that's going to drop out.
I think looking at what we've got, it's the one that's going.
Okay.
Unfortunately, looking at what we've got here, I don't see with my introduction of Horde to Gears of War 2, I don't see how that drops off, and
No.
I don't see how, based on the emotional argument, I don't see how Overcooked drops off, and the fact that we've both got Left 4 Dead, I don't see how that drops off. So
Okay.
I think it has to go, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean it's a bad game.
No.
And that doesn't diminish the fun we've undoubtedly both had with it. So
Yeah.
it's what it is. We're both in agreement for the last two, interestingly.
We are. So our number 2 that we both picked in that position is Sea of Thieves.
I absolutely adore Sea of Thieves. I think it is so cool. Like, working together to just drive the boat is fun in it on itself. Like, if you ignore everything else, because yes, it's not now because they've added a lot to it, but when it launched, it was a bit thin on the ground.
Yeah.
But the act of going onto a ship with your mate and just working together to get it from one place to another is fun.
Yeah, 100%. The race to who can find the X on the island first and dig up the treasure, and we'd have. I played this over. I think I've mentioned it before. I played it over the summer with 2 of my friends, and we argued so much about what we wanted to do. We would always get in. If we got in a fight, it would be just chaos. We were never really coordinated properly. And it would always just be like, oh, I can't find this treasure chest. And then somebody else go, oh, you fucking idiot, let me go get it. And then, as soon as the first person heard that ding and found the treasure, there'd be bragging rights to go. There'd be people puking on each other. People would randomly just go stand in your way. When one of my friends would go jump on when you're trying to pilot the ship with the wheel, they jump on top of that and just lie down in one of the emotes or start playing the fucking instruments in your face. It was just there was scope in that game to do all sorts of silly things or serious things or just have a laugh. That it combines so many great aspects of what makes good co-op games that it has to be on this list, because, as you say, the working together's there, but there's also a sense of fun involved with it. I just wish it had a better set of combat mechanics. I think if they ever
the combat mechanics are
do
pretty
this
bad,
again, they need to really work on that and get a bit more variety in the enemy types and stuff, because a sequel's potential for this is sky high if they keep the core of the game there and just tighten it up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, really, really cool game and well worth its second place. Did you play much of the story stuff? Because I started playing it and then it sort of came just as my time with this game was coming to an end. But I really enjoyed what I played of it.
Yeah, they. I tried to enjoy them from a story perspective, but my mates would quite often ruin that by just being idiots while I was trying to listen to the dialogue.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, but they basically were like a combination of all the standard missions together, but they also had loads of cool stuff you had to figure out. There's one we have to look at like constellations, and one we have to follow notebooks of like love letters written between 2 people to try and find out where they were. Really cool stuff. The only problem you have there is that people could come along and ruin it while you're in the middle of it. And I remember we nearly got fucked up once, but we managed to spam the chat line of the fact that we were doing it. There was a chat line, something to do with the item that we had. We kept saying, oh, I've got the item or whatever, and they left us alone, because I assume they realised these guys have probably just put about 5 hours into this, and it will be super dickish to just go and sink their ship right now and steal all their story stuff. So yeah, but they're definitely worth jumping back in for those missions.
Yeah,
the best bit of the game.
Maybe we can do it one day and go and see what the battle pass thing is like, if it's worth getting into again.
Absolutely.
What's our number 1 game, Alex?
Our number 1 game is easily the best game in terms of cleverly designing the co-op structure to properly involve both players doing separate things that always work together as a whole, and that is Portal 2. It is the cleverest co-op game easily ever made. It's so clever
Yeah.
the way that way that you have to sync what you're doing together, and it's completely separate to the single player game. It's its own thing where they could properly design it around having two people there, and then the wealth of ideas in Portal 2's co-op mode is astounding.
Yeah, it's just one of these games that it's fresh insofar as that it's a game that issues just shooting things in the face to puzzles and encourages people to communicate, which is what you want from it. What you want from a co-op game. A lot of these games you could probably get through playing together and not ever speak to one another, but this one you're not going to get through if you don't speak to one another. Mm-hmm. And for that, it's the co-op of co-op games, isn't it? And it's a nice palatable feel in a world that Valve created that is really fun and whimsical, but also quite sinister at the same time. And it's just a fantastic experience.
It's fun to bounce ideas off your friend and come up with solutions together, where not everything in this game, like a lot of these, is going to be reactive. This one is very different in terms of it can be a plan that you have to hatch together, and you have to put your brains together to try and figure something out, and you've got the time to do it in a comfortable way. And that was just we had a great time playing it. I don't actually know if we ever finished it. Did we? I don't know
if we did either.
Yeah, might have to go back to that.
Yeah, I think we got stuck. Yeah, might have to have a return one day.
So
but that brings us. Well, we haven't actually made our top 5. We kind of
we've got
decided
Portal 2
on a top
1.
5 and moved on.
Yeah,
Portal 2 number 1, Sea of Thieves number 2,
and then I've stuck Overcooked in at the bottom, and then now we just need to decide which is better out of Left 4 Dead and Gears of War 2.
I'd put Gears of War 2 above personally, but I could go either way on this depending on what you're feeling.
That's what I would have said too, so we're all good.
Job done. Job's a good one. So
give us
running down the top 5 co-op games, the Winners U top 5 co-op games. We have got Overcooked at number 5, Left 4 Dead at number 4, Gears of War 2 at number 3, Sea of Thieves at number 2, and Portal 2 at number 1.
Yeah,
there's all those numbers, 2s and 1s and 3s knocking me out there, and 4s actually.
Yeah, Left 4 Dead. Abides by where it needs to be, number 4.
Yeah, and that brings us to the end of our